Pune as general manager. Then I was invested in Kolkata, and before eventually moving to overseas, and I was in Maldives. And for last over 1 year, I've been in Maldives, and now I'm here to talk about how the things going to unfold as we move forward with COVID. And I just hope and pray that we get over this sooner than what the prediction is at this point in time. So I'm looking forward for this chat, and I look forward to the questions, and feel free to ask as many questions as possible. And I think Vijay will try and combine those questions, and in turn, these are the questions that which gives you food for thought as well. So while I'm going to say things that are there in my thought process, but I think questions will also give us a fair bit of insight.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Agarwal. Mr. Pandey, can we please have you?
Thanks, Nishant. First and foremost, Vijay, thank you to you and to the entire academic team of Bharati Vidyapeeth to have me here. I am Rohit Pandey. I work with a education technology firm since the last 8 weeks. It was in the nick of time that I found the right employment.
So your video
is not having on the other end of the screen, wanting to listen to how to deal with this situation. Prior to being with this education technology organization, I have been with hospitality for a decade, 2011 until 2020. Prior to that, I was again with the ITS industry. So I believe that I am equipped to deal with each of you today, to interact with you. And apart from the questions that Vijay may pose at us, I would be very, very happy to answer any spontaneous questions that you may have, that any of the attendees may have, and may want to redirect it to Professor Aniket or to Vijay directly. Thank you.
Rohit sir, we cannot see you. Your screen, we cannot see you on the screen. Yes, that's it.
Okay. Is this better, sir?
Yes.
Yes, now we can see you, sir.
Okay, Vijay, this wasn't for any effect. It's just that I suffer from short-term memory losses, and I forgot. Go ahead, sir. Vijay, go ahead.
So just to give once again welcome both of you to my college, to proudly say, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea about today. I'm not going to talk to you as a co-employee that I've worked with you before. I'm going to talk to you as a student of Bharati Vidyapeeth, representing so many students from my college. I hope you don't mind that.
Vijay, you have full liberty over Nishant and me. Do not be apologetic about being a student of Bharati Vidyapeeth or having worked with Nishant at Oberoi's or with me at St. Regis. You represent the scores of faces that we have on the screen. So you have complete freedom.
Right. So what we've done, sir, we've along with the principal Wilson sir and Aniket sir and Ajay sir, we have combined a pool of questions along the commonly asked questions with the students, what's bothering them in the scenario and everything. So we connected that, and then we will start with you. So I think the first question would be for Nishant sir.
I lost the video, Vijay. Sorry, the audio.
Nishant sir, are you with us?
Yes, I am with you. I just lost the audio. Can you come again?
Yes, I said, can I start with the question for you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So we'd like to understand from you, what will be the measures taken by the hotels post this pandemic to ensure that the guests feel safe to use different services of the hotels? Secondly, how will you communicate to the guests about all the surfaces are clean, sanitized, from the remote control and the cards, the hygiene standards, basically an overall perspective?
Sure. Vijay, I'll come to this question to address this question very soon. But, I want to share something with the audience today.
Yes.
And those are my general thoughts of how, as individuals, we need to combat this crisis that is hit upon us. So what my thought process is that, these unprecedented times, it's a very, very difficult time for the industry, for the country, and the overall economy of the nation. Even the world is suffering due to this virus. And the way forward, which is the topic of the discussion today, and to me, the only way forward is to stay focused, is to stay positive, stay motivated, have faith. And I think all of that I'm saying is, well, much easier than done. Right? If I say this, the only way that we can move forward uh, is to not just get overwhelmed with these motherhood phrases that I've just used, but the point is to just stay focused by breaking down these motherhood phrases into tiny bits, bite-sized ways and means to remain focused, remain motivated, remain positive, and the other things that I just mentioned. And we must come out winners on the other side of this crisis. And that's my two bit to the whole thing, as a broader perspective to the whole COVID crisis that we are facing today. And one thing is for sure, that we can't afford to let ourselves down. And if I take the liberty of quoting um Martin Luther King, and he said that, I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, rough places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed. On this note, and Vijay, I think we've prepared one graphic as well. I would like to show a simple graphic and
It's on the screen.
to our audience. I came across this graphic few days ago. I think the graphic is on. And, if you look at it very, very carefully, as you see, there is a valley in the picture. The valley is steep and many horses are falling into the valley. By the looks of it, it seems that they're falling into the valley with their head first, meaning we can't rule out brain trauma. If the horses hit the hard surface, and I'm assuming they will get hurt as well. This valley is the impact crater created by the coronavirus. And now if you pay close attention to the top right, you can see that there is one horse that has grown wings. It even has a cute horn, which gives me the impression that the horse has turned into a unicorn. The horse is no longer a horse. So the learning that I would like to draw from this graphic is that it's the survival of the fittest. And in this new age of new normal, it will be the survival of the fittest. Having said that, what we do today to be a part of the new normal tomorrow is to figure out that how do I equip myself today? How do I arm myself? How do I prepare myself? That will be the key. We must not let this time pass by in vain, and we should continue to remain focused, to remain relevant as and when the industry progresses. So what I am today, if I believe that I'm going to be tomorrow the same way, I'll still progress, those days are gone. And I'll come to that, as the chat progresses. And I'll come to your question now, Vijay, that what is the industry doing to ensure that the guest is felt safe and secure as they enter the doors of a hotel? I think, what I've been hearing, what I've been listening to company leaders, every hotel company these days working extremely hard to work on new norms of hygiene. They're working on SOPs of social distancing. New methods to woo the customer back in the hotel are being advised. And I assure you that a considerable amount of work is underway. And I'm very optimistic in that sense that sooner the hotels will be busy and buzzing, and so will be the employment opportunities. Hotels have been working hard to look at newer opportunities of revenue generation. Hotels never took food delivery seriously. Now they are tying up with aggregators like Zomato and Swiggy.
Yes.
They are looking at cost structures, and cost structures, new ratios will come into place. Is every part of the hotel generating revenue, or is any part of the hotel going wasted? Is that a way that I can utilize a part of the hotel or my food establishment to be utilized in a manner which is not just my core business, but a relevant business which I can work on simultaneously? Hotels are even working on new technology. I think they're working on thermal sensors, they're working on QR codes for menus and things like that, where the touch points are reduced from minimum to zero. And, the list is endless. And I must share that, these last 2 decades and what it has taught me as an industry, 2000 to 1999 when I started, from to 2008, typically those 9-10 years, we saw a lot of ups and downs. So
Right.
decade from 2000 to 2010, it was a decade, where hotels saw a lot of growth. A lot of hotels were opening, rates and occupancies were on the rise. And, things then started to look very different with global financial crisis in 2008. 26/11 happened. Hotels had to bring about a lot of changes. They had to bring a lot of changes in the security apparatus. They had to work a lot of manufacturing. And, demand was no longer in the hands of the customers. And but the interesting part is, as hotels and as professionals, hotels have been able to keep their nose above water. They brought in a huge amount of efficiency, and now after these 20 years, in 2020, I think this pandemic will teach us a lot of things. It's completely on us how we align ourselves or work around this pandemic to remain relevant, to be in the business. And it'll be era of hygiene and sanitation. Though, I must say that hotels were always the neat and clean places. But I think with this, the hygiene and sanitation has to go to a completely new level and look safe and secure from a guest perspective. And, I must also at the same time add that, contrary to what a lot of people are saying in the industry, you will see that moment we have a cure or a vaccine that comes up, and I think the entire pharma industry is working extremely hard to come up with a cure or a vaccine. And I think it's a matter of time, maybe next 12 months or so, when the vaccine will come in. Social distancing, it will be out of our minds. People will forget what social distancing was. And, if you look at history, 1918 Spanish outbreak, social distancing was the norm. 1/3 of the humanity was wiped out. But 2 years hence, 1921, 22, people forgot. People started to meet each other. People were engaging with each other. People were out on the streets. And the fear of that pandemic started to, veer off. And that's what I feel that's going to happen with the coronavirus as well. And I think that's what each industry needs to do. And as individuals, just to give everyone an assurance, as I said, I think hotels are doing extremely well in order to revive the confidence of the guest for them to have a safe and comfortable stay back again.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that was really a very, very huge perspective, a complete perspective of everything you've covered. So moving on, the next question I'd like to ask both of you together about, the question arises about, what are you as an organization doing to keep your employees engaged during this lockdown pandemic? How have you done, Nishant sir as well as Pandey sir, how have you both done that as leaders of the organization?
Mr. Pandey, would you address it? You're an HR professional, so.
Sure. Vijay and Nishant, and to everybody on this call, it's almost certain right now that employers and employees, everybody in their own might is in the midst of this slowdown, lockdown, recession, by whatever name we choose to call it. And it has happened to all of us in 10 years. The last that somebody came closer to it, or if he ever was working, was around 2008. What we see in the last 6 or 8 weeks is a decline in job postings on a LinkedIn, Naukri. And that is an indicator to me that something is wrong in the space that I work as an HR professional. Now, this slowdown or a lockdown has had a impact on people and their profession based on which side of technology it was. The hospitality business with enough focus on emotions and experiences has been impacted the most. industries like retail, like e-commerce, IT, life sciences, they could not get impacted so much because of this lockdown or recession or slowdown, whatever we choose to call it. During these times, hoteliers, I know for sure, have gone about finding multiple ways to engage with their employees. And the reason for them to engage with employees was economics of the business. If everybody would have been getting their salaries today, there was no reason for anybody to be thinking of engagement. But because that umbilical cord between an employer-employee relationship has been broken, Vijay, you bring up this topic that, hey, what are organizations doing to engage with employees? I would advise every organization, including mine today, that go about paying employees on the 30th of each month to take care of their bare essentials. I do not mean to say 100% component of their compensation, but do enough that a human sustains. Because if poverty strikes the door, engagement flies out of the window, Vijay. Okay. So I would first and foremost would encourage every organization to go about paying their employees to a proportion that they can incur to their deep pockets.
Right, right.
It is these employees who have been working with organizations either for a year or a decade or 5 decades. These employees' sweat has gone about adding to the equity of each organization and whatever they may have on their balance sheets. Everything else, learning and development engagements, or asking an employee to train for 2 hours of a day, or to go about dealing with loneliness, or coming up with an employer assistance program to deal with boredom, to deal with lack of self-esteem, lack of dignity, lack of self-worth, would be useless. My first means and measure of any organization in its engagement with its employees would be to go about paying them to the proportion that they can. The second would be to academicians. How could they go about engaging with the students? I would request every academician on this call today to go about upskilling their technology friendliness. Go about understanding multiple ways and means with which you can reach out to your students and also hear them out. Also listen to what they are trying to say rather than the old-fashioned way of a chalk and blackboard.
You're saying so the calls like this are going to be the future now? Webinar classrooms?
Vijay, in industries that can absorb a distant social distancing as a norm, yes. But I do not think hoteliering or hospitality as a business would ever sustain or flourish with social distancing being the norm. No, what I mean to say is, you spoke about this question of engagement between employees who are either furloughed, have been sent on long leave, or some who have been working in organizations. To me, a measure of engagement would be to take care of employees, and to take care of employees, you would have to first go about paying them a proportion of what their self-worth is all about.
Right, sir.
Nishant, would you have some ideas from your current?
Well, thank you, Rohit, and for everyone, apart from what Rohit has mentioned, I think the most important thing is to keep the channels of communication open with each and every employee, whether they are in the hotel or are in their homes, employed or unemployed at this point in time. At some point in time, they were employed with those employees. To be in touch with them, ask them how they're feeling, and assure them that we are in it together. That will give them a sense of confidence, that will keep them motivated, is one of the most important things that each employer must do at this point in time. The employee has to be offered a perspective and a sense of purpose, to tell them that what they can do to remain relevant. This will, this will help both for the organizations as well as keeping the employees engaged. And this is also the time to hugely invest in employees with training them in the new normal. Hotels were anyways, as I said, neat and clean places. it's the time to teach them about new levels of hygiene and sanitation. Once a receptionist, always a receptionist, as the saying goes, just not hold good anymore. Training employees to be versatile in all the departments will allow them to grow within the industries. It will open up opportunities for them. These employees will be in demand, and the hotels will be wise to recruit them if they're not already on the team with them at this point in time.
Right.
And that goes for the employers. But, another thing, I would like to say a few things for the individuals, or the people who are at home, or people who are working but they don't have much work at their workplaces. I think this is the time to say all those good things that we only hear, but we're always complaining that for the lack of time, we're not able to do that. And, those things are keeping yourself fit. If you exercise daily and if you can meditate for some time, that will be great. It is said that what your mind tells you. So keep your mind occupied with positivity and engaging productively. And, to keep the mind engaged, one must develop a habit of writing down all the thoughts that come in the head and try and program your mind. And, it's inevitable that mind is going to get negative thoughts. But, one should look at those negative triggers and replace them with positive triggers. Replace all the bad memories with the good ones. And, engage in some hobby, one hobby or the other. Spend a little bit of a time every day. It could be music, it could be writing, it could be reading, or even sports, yoga. But do this as a ritual every day. And, more than the employers, I think the onus is on the individuals to keep their motivation levels above high. You can't be depending on anybody else or any external factors to help you, tide over this crisis. But I think it's upon you how you deal with it as an individual.
I completely agree to what you spoke, Nishant. The question is not about what should organizations do to engage employees or ex-employees or employees furloughed. It is what should an employee do to engage himself. So I completely agree with what you spoke.
Thank you. That's a new perspective to the question. Nishant, so the next question is kind of, you already covered up in the previous question, so I'll skip that. I'll move on to the next one. As you know, there'll be many current third-year students, the final year students, who are very much worried about their placement offers either being deferred or cancelled, which makes a very anxiety amongst all these students in their mind. What would you like to say to them, sir?
I think, it has to do with the industry opening up. And I'm 100% sure people graduating this year, or, people who've been offered the jobs, but, there are organizations, they have taken away the offers now or are postponing the offers, by 3 months or 6 months.
Yes.
I think we are in a very, very tentative times, and my simple advice to them will be to, keep themselves engaged. This is the time for upskilling, which Rohit has also mentioned, and go back in your memory lane 3 years or 4 years that you spent in your college. Go through each and every subject that was taught to you in the institute, and be plug and play, ready to grab the first possible opportunity that comes your way. Enroll in online courses. And, hotel businesses moving towards getting more digitalized, if I may say. Marketing is happening digitally. Other aspects are happening more on the social media front. If there are online courses that are available, enroll on those courses and increase your skill set while sitting at home. I was talking to Principal Wilson the other day. I think the government has given a nod on a double graduation as well. And what I have witnessed as people grow up, they become great food and beverage managers. They become great chefs. They become great housekeepers. But what they lack is the financial acumen. And, this is going to be the new norm as well, because you will be expected to be a business manager. Every owner of the hotel who spent 100, 200, 300 crore rupees to put up their hotel would expect each of their employees to behave like a business manager. And I think if you can pick up simple courses on finance and accounting to understand, to be able to read P&L, to understand that every penny that I spend in the business is giving me worth the return of investing in it or not. So that is the kind of levels that people should start to think, and that will also give them an entrepreneurial streak in them. And uh, coming back to how these opportunities will come up, a lot is happening, uh, and people, and there are countries, they have come up with a term called travel bubble. The first set to do that is between New Zealand and Australia. What they're doing is they are saying that we two countries and neighboring countries are safe. We can start the travel between these two countries. So travel bubble, this is a new term that I learned lately. The travel will start from there. I think the learning that we can take from this is, can two neighboring states, can Haryana and Himachal, for example, start the travel if they feel that they are safe enough, and eventually move to other parts of the country before the international borders are open for everybody else. And I think every industry leader has spoken about it, that the revival will start to drivable distances. For example, Mumbai to Lonavala, Mahabaleshwar, and Delhi to Agra, Jaipur, Mussoorie, or even Himachal for that matter, Calcutta to Northeast. You know that you have a safety of your own car, and you would choose a hotel where you know that uh, you will have a certain sense of security, hygiene standards are getting met. So that travel will start. And with these, the opportunities will also come up. So, yes, it's a blip. It's, and 10 years down the line, it'll seem like a blip, but things will come to normal sooner. And I remain very, very optimistic as we go along and combat this.
Great, thank you. I think so. We need a lot of optimism from your advice. I'm sure students would have figured out how to at least keep them engaged and make some provisions for them until all the offers keep pouring to them once again. We wish them all the best as well. Pandey sir, moving on to you, what would be your advice to students who are now looking out for opportunities or avenues other than the jobs in the hotels or hospitality, something like hospitals, banks, or any other customer service related organizations?
Vijay, my first advice to students here should be that this should be the last thing on their mind to shift from their core domain of hospitality.
Okay.
All these industries that you spoke about, banking, retail, they have their own pool of people who were getting trained for and to be hired with this academic session coming to an end. Okay, so everybody had their inputs and outputs added up to become a complete demand supply equilibrium. Now today, suddenly, if we were to ask a hotel professional or a hospitality professional to look for an alternate career somewhere, maybe 10% people who communicate well, people who negotiate well, people who have great interpersonal skills,
Correct.
or people who have a great personality can make a mark and can be absorbed in any other industry. But for the rest of them, I would only advise them to keep their belief in the hospitality industry, because like Nishant spoke about, that there have been many setbacks throughout mankind's history.
Right.
And each time, hospitality as a profession was the first to bounce back. Because human beings are social beings. They would want to interact. The sooner this social distancing initiatives get out of fashion, the sooner a vaccine or a solution to the problem comes out, it would be much easier for human beings to mingle again. So hospitality as an industry, or the multiple affiliates of hospitality, will definitely gather currency very soon. It's all about having hope, belief, and the ability to upskill them during this time. Because Vijay, the best help is at the end of your arms. Trust me, no employer worth his salt is going to think about a laid off employee beyond 2 or 3 days.
Rightly said.
No academician has the time on his watch to think about a student who is at his home and awaiting an instruction from the academician unless the student himself desires to. So for all those students who are on this call, my message to them would be that the best help is at the end of your arms and the best speech is at the end of your tongue. Whatever you can do to go about adding finesse to both of them, go about doing it in terms of using this time to upskill yourselves, read about history, or get to know about ways and means in which mankind has gone about dealing with such setbacks and how has mankind again gone about bouncing back and holding their chin high, holding their self-esteem and their dignity with equal prominence as they hold their body. So I wouldn't advise any hotelier to look for any ancillary industry to work for. This is an industry which has enough appetite for all of us, Vijay, and it will definitely do good. Give it some time.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. There's one more question for you, sir, Pandey sir.
Mhm.
So, as a head of HR, as a vice president of HR, so what would you prefer as an employee, as a multi-skilled employee or a specialist employee?
Vijay, until the 23rd of March 2020, until you and I got educated about COVID-19 or coronavirus, I was a firm believer of being a specialist in his business. I wanted a cobbler to be a cobbler of repute. I always wanted a Italian cuisine to be a Italian chef to be a chef of repute that nobody could catch his hand.
Right. Right.
But this was before COVID. Today, if you were to ask me, I would expect the cobbler also to become a plumber by upskilling himself, if that was to be the word. I would want this Italian chef also to dabble with Indian cuisine if there was a need to sustain himself. If he has to survive, he would have to become a jack of all.
That goes for front office, housekeeping, F&B, everyone.
That goes for anybody who has a desire to survive, Vijay. Holding on to ego that I was a manager wouldn't hold currency or relevance anymore. A manager may have to do the job of a team leader to survive. A team leader may have to do the job of an associate to survive. A associate in front office would have to learn skills of housekeeping if he has to survive, because if he does not do it, somebody else will do it. For every 100 jobs available for 300 available resources, today that 100 has become 20. So there are 20 jobs, there are 20 multi-skilled jobs available for 300 proficient skilled professionals.
So the ratio is very, very high.
I, as a HR professional, if I had a question, I would only ask that, hey, are you a multi-skilled? Are you wanting to be multi-skilled? Or are you wanting to hold on to your ego and be a specialist of whatever you did pre-COVID?
Okay. Thank you, sir. So the final question from our panel before we move on to the students' question. This is for both of you. We'll be happy to hear from you. As you mentioned about some mankind survival, any previous real life struggle that you've been through in the hotel, in your company, in your organization, something like 2611 or 911, whichever you've been part of.
Vijay, let me take the chance to answer this. I do not know if there was any global phenomenon that impacted me in my past, but I know for sure that where I belong to and where I am, I have traveled quite a distance.
Yeah.
A part of that distance traveled, I would give the credit of it to upskilling, which I did by attending to multiple curriculums at multiple stages of my life to give me a higher pedestal each time I completed a curriculum. I would again go back and look at multiple times that I was on the verge of being laid off because of things beyond my control. It either was to do with, it never had to do with a pandemic or a epidemic or some, there's one more word, Vijay. What is the troika? Pandemic, epidemic, and one more. Or something beyond our controls.
Okay.
So each time such phenomena would happen, all I would do is not to let loose of my courage and of my confidence. my confidence to face the next day with a sense of pride that me and my dependents would be happy to know about. This is the only lesson that I could share with you. There's nothing far worse that has happened to me, but each time I was closer to something bad, I always would believe in my own confidence. I would believe in my own abilities to lift myself out of those situations.
Great. Thank you, sir. Nishant, sir, anything that you'd like to add on, sir?
I think Rohit has very well put, and even if there were, instances in his career, I think he's kind of handled that quite well, where the crisis did not look like a crisis. But just to let everybody through the 20 years of my career, and I think I've been through a lot of situations of crisis in my career spanning over 20 years, though not as grave as the current one at hand. And just to let you know, when I was about to graduate, the world was going through a recession, and I'm talking about the Asian financial crisis, which started from Thailand, and the collapse of Thai baht and the ripple to the entire Southeast Asia. The economic conditions led to very minimal recruitment in those days, in hotels especially, because the occupancies were low. And then but it wasn't that bad. Hotels were opening, and hotels saw growth from there on till about 2008. In between, 9/11 happened in 2001.
Right.
But as I said, from that time to about 2008, India had a great run. Before global financial crisis, if you remember, due to subprime mortgage market collapse in US, hit us. That was in 2008. And at the same time, the unforgettable 26/11. It shook India like never before. And being there on that very day in Trident, Mumbai, I couldn't have been more closer to that tragic incident. But very soon we were up on our feet, and I very closely witnessed the revival process and the revival of the guest confidence, that they start to travel and start to stay in those hotels all over again, be it Taj or be it Oberoi. And I was at the Oberoi, so I could see it myself. Well, a lot had changed. The entire security apparatus had changed, but it brought about a lot of learning about the whole situation. It just didn't teach you hoteliering. It taught you many more things, how to handle life in particular. People were shaken up. People who had close shaves with the terrorists. A lot had to be done in the hotels to keep them motivated. People were scared. People were mentally shaken up. So I've been through that time where a lot was done by the hotels, but it was completely on the emotional quotient of individuals. How well did they combat that situation? And but the rest is history.